Good morning, everyone, and welcome to my podcast. My name is Lynette. Today we're going to talk about knowing how to live. And there's so many adjustments we can make. There's so many relationships we have, starting with your own family, with your love relationship, with friends. And these become paramount to how we're feeling. We have to be careful not to distance people because of what we're going through. So I'm going to start talking to you about a romantic relationship, because sometimes in time we start out, our head is in the moon because we're so happy to have met this person. And then what happens? What makes that distance? What makes us grow apart? And if you really pay attention and start to watch how you speak to each other, that will kind of give you a hint. It's very interesting how as time goes on and we get comfortable with someone, we forget about that romance that brought us together in the first place. And if they say something kind of resentful to us, and then we respond with something resentful back, pretty soon the voices escalate, the conversations drift apart, people in general drift apart, when really that person was no different than the person that you first fell in love with. But when we talk to each other in a bad tone or in a way of blaming, pretty soon each party gets defensive, and then nothing gets accomplished. I know in my own personal relationships, if I respond out of anger or out of resentment or out of lack of trust, then pretty soon that's what I get back. But if you take a minute, you can still get the same thing said. Maybe you're not saying it in a way where you're venting. Maybe it's not giving you satisfaction in terms of venting, but that's not what we're trying to accomplish. So set that aside. Save that venting for whoever you speak to about personal things. I want to bring us back to what we talked about a minute ago. When you're with someone, whether it be a month or 10 years, you always have to remember that person that you just fell in love with. And so by listening and responding in a way that you would as if this was a fresh relationship, you wouldn't respond in a way where you're venting because you know that you wouldn't be together very long. Talking about a significant other or even friends for that matter. So you always need to take a minute, take a breath, and remember what it was that brought you to that person in the first place, even if that's not where they're coming from. If you'll notice when you talk to someone in a kinder, more patient way, you still accomplish the same thing, but they respond to you in a more loving way. And it's real interesting because as you do this and you look at your relationship and how it's developing, it kind of goes back to the place where they like spending time with you. You will notice your time together, whether it be going places or in conversation or whatever, is more united. There's not a wedge. I mean, if there is a wedge, it becomes less and less. I'm not speaking here trying to be a therapist by any means. I'm speaking, and which I usually do when I speak to you, is tried and true things that I've done that I've noticed within my own life. When things start to drift apart, and to be honest with you, nobody's happy, not either party, whether it is a romantic relationship or a friendship. But when you speak with someone with respect, they do respond in a happier manner, in a more respectful manner, which also opens a door for, if there is an issue there, that you can talk about it without coming from a place of anger or elevation of your voice. Personally, I think so many times when we think something is ending, it's just because we've gotten too comfortable with the person. But if we always remember what drew us to them in the first place, always act kind of like you're on your first date, enjoying listening to them, because that person is still there. They're still underneath this person that you think you're seeing. That original one that drew you in the first place is still there, whatever the issue is, but they are still there. And so you will notice in life, what you give out is what comes back to you. And this applies to conversations, to relationships. And if they don't, I'm speaking generally of friendship or romantic relationships, and if they don't come back to you in that certain way, then you know you can take it for face value. You can take it for what it is, that you've done your part, and this person doesn't respond to the authentic you, the kind you, because you are a kind person. And so you don't want your MO to be responding out of anger or frustration or resentment. Always gather yourself and come from a place of feeling grounded, feeling that what you've said is the right thing. And how they respond, that really is a true tale. But what I'm saying here is don't escalate a negative situation. But if you do respond from a negative, resentful place, you have to ask yourself, am I responding out of something that I've gone through, something that put me in this negative mode? And if so, bring yourself back. Look at that person and think about what they have done for you, what positive things they've done for you. Because sometimes you just have to understand where they're coming from too. Sometimes it's a place of frustration on their part. And that's why it's so important to not only communicate, but to not escalate, because nothing gets accomplished then. I know that there are exceptions to all of this. I know some things are irreversible, but the point being that if you know that you've done everything you can do, that you're coming from a place of honor, that you've made yourself look at this person as the person that you want, that you first fell in love with, but they're responding in a negative way or a totally unacceptable way, then be grateful that you found out. But don't be the creator of why this drifts apart. You always got to remind yourself, just like you as a human being want to be treated with respect and calmness. Nobody wants to be on the defense. But remember, resentment feeds on resentment. Just like love feeds on love, patience feeds on patience. If you will notice, what you say to someone and how you say it is generally what they're going to give back to you. As I've talked to you before, everything starts somewhere. Everything starts with one person. And there's a strong possibility that this person that's going to start it within your circle or your household or your relationship is going to be you. And that's good. Thank goodness you learned this, because it will not only pay off in romantic relationships, but it'll pay off in all relationships, whether it be friendship, work, whatever the situation is. Learning to see the value in that person and not get too comfortable with anyone. But I also have noticed if I show in my tone or my conversation that I value them more, not only do I see more of who they really are, but I noticed that they rise to the occasion. People generally respond to how they're treated. It is so worth it to bring that person back to someone that you value and values you. Because how we treat each other makes all the difference in the world. It'll make a difference between you living a happy life or an unhappy life. That feeling of you don't want to go home because it's not really a safe place, to where you want to go home. And again, there's a strong possibility that it's going to start with you, but it doesn't matter who it starts with. The point is, it pays off. And if it does start with you, it means that you've learned a valuable lesson in how to conduct yourself in relationships to make them stronger, to get the most out of someone, to see the value in people. Have you ever been around someone who you know doesn't see your value? You can just tell by the way they treat you. Or you feel like you've been around certain people a long time, but they don't really know you because they don't really give you the time to shine. And so sometimes people are missing a real jewel. They already have everything they need. They already have a wonderful situation in their life, but they're looking past it. Value what you have. Value what you've got. Value the person that is in your relationship or the people that are in your relationships. Don't look past them. Let them be who they are. Let them evolve. Don't make them feel unnoticed. I think most of the time we already have what we need, but all that's happened is over time that we've gotten too relaxed. Another part of the spectrum is trust. We've got to trust each other. And when you totally trust each other, what a wonderful feeling to know that somebody always has your back. However, when you start to resent and somebody tells you something that you want to clap back at, that's when you need to step back and say your part calmer and just let it go. Because the truth is, we're not responsible for anyone else. We can't help with what they've done or how they look at things or what they're going to do or say. But what's interesting, if you approach your end in a calmer demeanor and let someone have the benefit of the doubt, when they present their side, you can really understand. And you're so happy that you didn't overreact, because it's interesting. Just because people don't think like us doesn't mean they're not right. Doesn't mean how they're looking at things isn't the correct way. It just means that it's different than the way we look at things. But getting back to trust, that applies to all relationships, whether it be romantic, friendship, business, whatever. It's important to have that trust. I know sometimes you feel like people aren't listening to you. I remember when I first started to get a little bit sick, I would tell people, but I'd say it so subtle because I think part of me was embarrassed that maybe I wasn't who I used to be, or I don't know why, but I felt like people didn't listen to me. And then I had gone to this doctor, and he kept me waiting for a long time. And when he came in, he said something like, well, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. And I should have listened to him a little more even then, because sometimes you have to make sure that who you're speaking to understands where you're coming from, what you're trying to get across to them. Because I wasn't forceful in it or putting my point across. I felt like no one was listening to me. And the people I'm talking about, I'm pretty sure are people that care about me. But sometimes it's in the way you say things. And I don't think I was saying it where I necessarily wanted to be heard. That's another thing you need to check. When you talk to someone within your circle, whether romantic or friendship, and you want them to understand something they're feeling, you have to look on how you present it because they only know as much as you're telling them. And even at that, people don't really absorb all that you're saying. So you have to make yourself clear. You have to say how you feel, how it makes you feel. Because it's very easy to get upset that somebody doesn't understand what you're feeling when actually you haven't really presented how you're really feeling. I know when you believe in and trust God, everything works out the way it's supposed to. But you need to do your part also. We can't just expect things to be a certain way without putting our energy, our effort into something. And this reverts back to not looking at the past. I know we all harbor resentment for things that people didn't do. In fact, there's a country western song that says, it's not what you did do, but it's what you didn't do. And if we harbor resentment for what we think somebody should have done but didn't do, we can't look back at that. We got to just understand that we made it through it. It is the past. Now, today is February 13th. And on that note that I just spoke about, I'm going to talk about Valentine's Day. But it's the day before Valentine's, although I know you won't hear this before Valentine. But take a holiday like Valentine. You expect people to respond a certain way to you, to make you happy in a certain way, to give you maybe what you think would make you happy. Well, I personally learned years ago that I will make myself happy. After having year after year after year of disappointment of not getting what I wanted, I started ordering See's candy. I don't know if it's a California candy or in the U.S. or where, but anyway, See's candy was my thing. And I never got See's candy. So I started ordering it myself. Not only did I buy See's candy, but it had to be in a pretty heart-shaped box. And ever since I started doing that, I never again had that let-down feeling. And I can only imagine that would apply to if you want to go to a movie, if you want to go out to dinner, because who better to date first than yourself? When you feel good with yourself, with your own company, you can do anything. You don't always have to wait for other people. So don't make that mistake. Start taking care of you. Start enjoying your own company. And then anything that's added on to that people do for you is just a blessing. Like this Christmas, it was such a surprise. I was just sitting there, and this girl texted me and said, I'm going to drop something off at your house. And she did drop off See's candy, to my surprise. But it was such a pleasant addition, such a pleasant surprise. But don't always count on that. Take care of you. Get what you want. Get what makes you happy. And don't sit home and be unhappy if somebody isn't up to doing what you want to do. You can still do it. In fact, sometimes when you're alone, you're approachable and you meet all kinds of people. So it's really a win-win. It's nice to have people to do things with, but don't let that stop you. With that being said, I'm going to close now, but I wanted to give you a way to contact me in case you have any questions or any comments. And I think the easiest and best way would be on TikTok. My name on TikTok is Lynette Meeglitz, at Lynette Meeglitz. So it's capital LYNETTE space capital MIEGLITZ and then at, and it's Lynette Meeglitz. Again, only all one word, there's no space, and it's all small letters. And that is on my TikTok account. Would love to hear from you. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy your candy flowers. And like I said, don't wait for someone else. If you want it, get it. Take care. Bye-bye.